Bridges are stronger when built from both sides.
Let's connect.
Let's connect. In the middle.
Hello and welcome to Building Bridges, a show on the Greensboro Television Network that highlights ways members of the public and members of the Greensboro Police Department can connect with each other. I'm your host, Sandra Hughes. On today's program, we will talk about an issue that tends to be brought to our attention a lot more during the holiday season, but really is something we should pay attention to all year round. As Thanksgiving, Christmas, and the New Year approach, we place a lot of emphasis on how to keep our roadways safe. And that makes sense, you know, because people are traveling to visit friends and families, and we have lots of celebrations to attend. The extra miles and the extra drinks could be a deadly mix. Joining me today are two people who see the consequences of bad driving choices all too frequently. Next to me is Sergeant Kevin Wallace from the Guilford County Sheriff's Department and Officer J.B. Stanley from the Greensboro Police Department. Welcome to you both to Building Bridges. Glad you could be with us today. Yes, and we are facing a big deal with the holidays coming, and I know you guys are revving up for that. Explain a little bit about the task force.
Okay, the Guilford County DWI Task Force was started in 2012. Governor's Highway Safety and NHTSA contacted me and to see if we could get a group of guys together to combat the DWI problem and also seatbelt issue in Guilford County with fatalities, because we were number 2 in North Carolina with the most fatalities. So we put a program together, and Governor's Highway Safety gave us around $750,000 to start up a DWI task force, and that consists of 2 Greensboro police officers, 2 High Point police officers, and 3 from the Guilford County Sheriff's Office that actually do the enforcement part of it.
Are you happy about this task force?
Yes, we're excited. I mean, the last 4 years has just been, you know, it's been good. It's been productive.
So, Officer Stanley, tell us a little bit more of the task force from your perspective.
Well, as a police officer assigned to the Guilford County DWI Task Force, what we do is we partner with other law enforcement agencies throughout Guilford County, and just to name a few, the Greensboro Police Department, High Point Police Department, and the Guilford County Sheriff's Office, and patrolling the roads of Guilford County and enforcing traffic laws such as, or especially, seatbelt laws and driving while impaired laws. And the reason why we focus on those laws so much is not just in Guilford County, but throughout the state. People lose their lives every year because they fail to do the extra step and put their seatbelt on, or there's other people out there that are impaired on either alcohol or drugs that cause a crash that results in somebody losing their life.
So in each department, Guilford County, Greensboro, High Point, you just have 2 apiece or 3 apiece in that. So does that mean you don't do other kind of law enforcement?
Okay, what we focus on, our focus, we work permanent night shift. We come in at 8 o'clock at night and work till 6 o'clock in the morning. Our only focus and main focus is motor vehicle law of North Carolina and DWIs. That's all we focus on. You know, there's 7 of us. I'm in the supervisory role, but 6 of these guys, they split their time up between the county, between Greensboro City and High Point City. And what we try to do is we only go focus in areas where we know or have knowledge of, and we have statistics to back this up, that impaired drivers are frequently in the area. For example, you know, I get the information from High Point, Greensboro, and the Highway Patrol on where fatalities are occurring in the county. So we send the guys out there and we have them do saturation patrol, where they patrol that area in their cars. Or we set up a check-in station, or we set up a DWI checkpoint, and the difference in the two is the DWI checkpoint, we have a Batmobile come down out of Raleigh, and we set that up in that area, or we just set it up with our 6 guys, plus we ask Greensboro, if we're in Greensboro, High Point, to come and help us. And we try to focus on those areas to get the DWI, the guys that are drinking and driving, and also seatbelts. We try to focus nighttime seatbelts because that is a big problem also in Guilford
Is this
County.
a big job for you? I mean, with just 7 of you doing it, is it big for you, Officer Stanley?
Yes, we stay busy. We stay busy. There's 6 of us, and we're trying to cover all of Guilford County and get as many drunk drivers or impaired drivers off the road as possible. And later you have to go to court for all these driving while impaired charges. So it is a big task. It is a big job, and you stay busy doing it.
So are you handling it all right? Are you going to grow, or what's the situation?
Well, I'm hoping we'll grow, but as of right now, we're just maintaining. We're doing good, and we all enjoy what we do. And you have to be, because dealing with impaired drivers, you don't always come across the nicest people, but it is what it is, and we like doing it.
Okay. You must have special training to do this.
Yes, we do, and I'll let him explain
Okay.
that because he has all the training.
All right.
So being assigned to the DWI Task Force, there's certain training that we have to go through. And just to name a few, we're all chemical analysts for the state of North Carolina, which is somebody that's permitted to operate the breathalyzing instruments that when we arrest somebody for a DWI, we take them before, if it's alcohol, and we'll have them blow into an instrument, and it gives us a blood alcohol reading. And you have to be certified by the state to do that. And also we have an advanced roadside impaired detection enforcement course we go through, which basically teaches us not just the basic stuff, but advanced stuff, such as what to look for in drug drivers as well, not just alcohol impaired drivers. We're also trained. There's 2 of us on the DWI Task Force that are certified by the state of North Carolina, me being one, as a drug recognition expert in North Carolina. And that's very beneficial, especially now. Not everybody's drinking alcohol. We have prescription drugs, we have illegal illicit drugs. And where that comes into play is if me or another officer stops somebody that they know they're impaired, they just don't know what it is because it's not alcohol. They can summons us to do an evaluation. We can give a expert opinion on what that substance may be.
Is that keeping you both very busy? I mean, I'm hoping that people have heard about problems with DUI, DWI for decades now. So are people slowing down, or are they still going at it?
We've seen a trend when we first started. The DWI Task Force is going to be out there, and everybody knew the DWI Task Force because we have certain cars, certain lights, and we'd arrest people and they'd say, oh, this DWI Task Force, just for that reason. But we've seen a decline. But over the last year and a half, we have seen it creep up just a little bit. And I think that's mainly based on the economy. The economy is getting better. People have more money to go out and spend on alcohol and have fun, if you will. But and that's okay. It's okay to economy to being better, and them going out and having fun. I'm all for that. But these guys need to remember, one thing I like to tell people: if you're going to go in there and you're going to spend $3 to $6 for an alcohol drink, and that's low, right?
Right.
Why not walk in and put in your back pocket $5 or $6 or whatever before you even get started, and when you get ready to leave, remember that money's in your back pocket, and call Uber or a taxi or a friend to come and pick you up. So I think, it went down, but now the trend, because of economy, is getting a little better.
I'm just not used to people calling taxis to help them out. Everybody thinks, I can handle this, I can handle this.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
Maybe we need to shout that to our viewers.
And their thoughts are impaired. Studies have shown that's, alcohol goes straight to your brain. So the first thing that is affected is what you do, how you act. There's a lot of things that contribute to that.
And the best thing you could do really is, if you know you're going to go out and go drink, don't put yourself in the situation to make that decision to drive. Leave your car at home, get a friend to drop you off, and that way, at the end, when you're done, you're forced to do one of 2 things: walk, call a cab, or call a friend.
Won't we be lucky if people start doing that?
Oh, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
That would be nice.
But then you guys would be out of a job, right?
Well, but lives would be saved. And
Yeah,
it'd
they
worth
would
it.
be.
That's our number one thing, that if we don't say anything here, is saving lives. Making sure nobody gets killed in an accident, a fatality involving alcohol or not having their seatbelt on, because one main thing about this is it's 100% preventable. Every alcohol-related fatality is 100% preventable.
If that person
would just take the responsibility and not drink and drive. Yes, ma'am.
I see. You have some numbers here I'm just dying to hear.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So, and also make note, it's not just the DWI Task Force when we talk about, arresting driving while impaired. You have the city of Greensboro, you have High Point, you have the Sheriff's Department, and you have the North Carolina Highway Patrol, who does a great job. They average, around 650 a year for each individual department.
Oh, goodness.
So the numbers that I'm giving you is on top of what the other cities and also the Highway Patrol is doing.
I see.
So when we were put in place here, all those numbers stayed the same. So all the numbers that you're going to hear is above and beyond what the other agencies are doing.
Oh my.
So what I did is I have a running total as of this morning. So since we started in 2012 and we started on the road really hitting it hard in January of 2013, so 5 years. So in 5 years to this morning, we've arrested 4,806 impaired drivers.
Wow.
Total seat belts is around 3,000. We've seized 348 vehicles for a little over $2 million worth of cars that was seized. Now, when we seize a car, that means that the driver didn't have insurance and was driving on a revoked driver's license, or they were revoked for a DWI. So there's stipulations that has to be there before we can seize the car. One thing that's interesting about it is the young drivers. Out of that number, there's 955 people less than the age of 21 that have been charged with driving while impaired.
Teenagers almost.
Teenagers,
Yeah.
less than 21.
Now that's very scary.
Yes, it is very scary. Like I said, our average, the task force average for the last 5 years is 961 a year with just 6 guys.
That's incredible.
Just-
Suppose you had 12 guys.
If we had 12 guys, and keep in mind at night, the main people who work traffic is these 6 guys, because, the city of Greensboro, High Point, and also the county, they're very busy with calls of service.
I see.
You know what I'm saying? So they don't have the time to just concentrate on driving while impaired. So as the Highway Patrol, they have stranded motorists, they have wrecks, they have all kinds of things going on, cows in the
Domestic
road.
violence and all that stuff.
Yeah, so the good thing about the DWI Task Force is we are non-calls for service unless needed, unless it's an emergency. So these 6 guys can go out and concentrate on just motor vehicle law and DWI.
When you're out there at night watching, what are you looking for? What's a person, what kind of activity are you focusing on?
The main thing we're looking for is, like when we're following behind cars, we're looking for lane control, which is basically when somebody's driving down the road and they're going crossing left to center, or weaving within their lane, or maybe even going over the dotted white lane divider lines, speeding, driving under the speed limit. Real big ones, when you come to a stoplight, somebody that's impaired on alcohol or drugs, their reaction time's a little slower, and their perception, distance perception's a little off. So you'll notice they'll stop waving in front of the stop bar at a stoplight, and something as simple as that is a big red flag. And then speeding. Speeding's a huge one.
Oh my.
So.
Well, okay, what I want you to do is describe now what happens at a checkpoint, at a checking station. Is that what you call it?
Yes, it's a check-in station. Most people know it as a checkpoint. Basically what that is when a bunch of officers get together, whether it be, usually it consists of several agencies, like a DWI check-in station, so let's start with that. A big bus, the big bus you see that has the .08 written on it, booze it and lose it, comes from Raleigh. They set that up, and there's agencies all over Guilford County, UNCG, Greensboro Police, Sheriff's Department, High Point Police Department, Gibsonville Police Department. We all come together and we start checking cars or the drivers of cars for their driver's licenses and registration at a particular spot of the roadway. And while we're checking those things, we're talking to the drivers, trying to ascertain whether or not they may be impaired, whether we smell alcohol or see anything that would lead us to believe that they may be impaired driving. And if we see something like that, then we'll investigate further, may have you step out of the car, that kind of thing, and ask you some more questions. But you know, if you're going through a checkpoint, the best thing you can do is just get your license and registration out and be ready. If you're not doing, you know, if you're not drinking and driving, if you're not impaired, it'll be very quick, and it won't be much of an inconvenience for you.
Well, I guess that's where your numbers keep growing.
Well, you know, actually, we get most of our numbers because of social media. You know how fast that runs now.
Oh, yes.
You know, once we get out there, you know, they send out their texts, their Twitter messages, and they let them know where we're at. You know, what we do get is the people that are very impaired that don't hear their phone and can't read their Twitter.
Or can't text back.
Or can't text back. You know, we arrested someone down off of Old Rentleman Road a couple of years ago, and the guy actually said when he got out of the car, he said, you know, I got an app on my phone and told me y'all were here.
Oh.
Yes, ma'am. So, you know, he even read it on the app and still went through.
Went through it.
So, you know, some people don't even listen or pay attention to their apps, and they continue to do that. But we don't get as many at checkpoints as we used to, but they're still productive.
Tell you something that when I was a youngster driving, starting out as a teenager, you'd go down the road and a car coming at you would blink its lights 2 or 3 times, and we always thought that was saying there's an officer sitting up there waiting, so slow down or do whatever you have to do. Are they still doing that?
Yes, ma'am. I see that when I'm off. Yeah, I say there must be some law enforcement up there doing. Yes.
And I used to think that was not fair, but yes, it is, because it caused the person to slow down, didn't it? Okay, well, you know, I think everyone who drives through Guilford County should be thankful that officers like these are passionate about safety to be a part of the DWI Task Force. But wouldn't we all be better off if someone just did the right things behind the wheel to prevent crashes from occurring? When we come back, Sergeant Wallace and Officer Stanley will remind us of simple, practical steps we can take to keep our roadways safe. Be right back. Welcome back to Building Bridges, a monthly show that brings together police and community members to make our city safer. I'm your host, Sandra Hughes. Now, before the break, we learned about the Guilford County DWI Task Force and its efforts to take impaired drivers off the road. Continuing the conversation on how to keep our roadways safe are Sergeant Kevin Wallace from the Guilford County Sheriff's Department and Officer J.B. Stanley from the Greensboro Police Department. So let's talk in more detail about how we can prevent drunk drivers from getting on the roads in the first place. What's being done to warn people, don't even try this?
Well, Governor's Highway Safety during these times always put out, you know, we have campaigns where they put out and they advertise no drinking and driving during this time. So they try to use monies to put those out there. Greensboro Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, everybody's also good about putting those out on their TV and their radio shows. So that's one thing that we try to do is publicize it. The news media does very well, very good in putting that out also. So those are one thing that we do. And another thing I think that's very important is high visibility. High visibility. You know, when you get out here and you're traveling on 85, 40 or inside the city of Greensboro, I'm the same way when I'm off, and I'm law enforcement.
Yeah.
When I'm going down the road, I might be running 55, but what do? You put your hands 10-2 and you slow down. I think the main thing is visibility, being out here where everybody can see you and knowing that you're going to enforce the law, you know.
Well, one of the things I want is for people to stop being afraid of officers. You know, you're driving down the road and you see an officer's car behind you or in front of you, all of a sudden stamp on the brakes, you know, and slow down to an unreasonable speed because you're so afraid somebody's going to get it. What can we do about that? How can we make people understand just do what's right and you don't have to worry about that car that's over there that looks like a police officer?
Well, like he says, we publicize it, but also enforcement, you know. If people are out here getting tickets and we're out there enforcing the law and they go tell their friends, hey, you know, if you get in a Holden Road, you do 35 or whatever the speed limit may be, because you're probably going to get a ticket. Because I got one the other day. So enforcement, I think, is the best way to get it out there because people are going to tell their friends, their family, and that kind of thing.
Something else I want to put in there also, and you've seen this too, when you're going down 85, 40 or Holden Road, whatever road you're traveling on, all of a sudden, if you're like 15 cars back, you look up, and I do it all the time, and I go, what are these people doing slowing down? And then when I get up there, I see the law enforcement on the side of the road. But one thing that people need to remember is, you know, move over if you can, get away from, but travel, you know, if it's 35 and you're a lane or two over, go ahead and travel 35.
Right.
You know, the law only states to move over if you're in the lane next to the officer. You know, you need to slow down and move over. But a lot of people get bunched up and they get to looking. You know, they get to looking, and next thing you know, they're doing 25.
That's right.
And then everybody's backed up at 25. Next thing you know, you got 100 cars doing 25.
That's true.
And then when you pass that law enforcement officer, you look in front of you and it's just open highway for miles.
That's right.
So, you know, one thing I'd like to tell people is, you know, be cautious, be alert, but still travel at, you know, 45 or 55 away from the law enforcement officer, and you know, I guess don't be so nosy. Just continue on through there.
I was going to have to tell you about
That's what my mom used to say. Quit being so nosy.
My dad, bless his heart in heaven now, would pull over to go find out what's going on. So he was, you know, especially if it was a wreck, he'd have to pull over to the side and get out and go see if he could help. So,
and I'm from Montgomery County. That's a small county, and my dad used to be the same way. You know, they'd pull over, and they know everybody.
Oh,
so
yes.
But even down there, it backs traffic up and everything else. The main thing is just be safe and continue on, because there's a lot of cars out here on the streets.
Well, I haven't known anybody to do that but my dad, so I hope maybe that part of our life is over with. So let's describe what people are facing. They're going to go out to parties, you know, in banquet halls and restaurants and all that, and then there's some going to stay at home and have parties. Especially the stay-at-home people, what kind of responsibility is it of the party host at a house to make sure you don't leave my house and drive impaired?
Well, if you're having a party at your house, you need to think in advance. You know, how many people are you going to have? Is it going to just be close friends, or is it going to be a big to-do? Because ultimately, if you're allowing people to drink at your house and you're serving alcohol, if they leave and get behind the wheel of the car and hurt somebody, you can ultimately be held liable, civilly liable. I see. And nobody wants to be in that situation, you know, because of lawsuits and stuff like that. So what I'd recommend do, if it's some close friends that are coming over drinking for a ball game or whatever, talk to them in advance. You know, offer them a place if you want them to stay at the house. Make arrangements to do that, or make sure they have a ride to leave, and make them put their keys somewhere. If they drive there, take their keys from them until they're ready to leave. And if they don't drink and they're okay when they leave, then that's fine. You can give them keys back if they're fine at the end of the party. But ultimately, it's your responsibility because you're throwing the party.
Well, you know, that's something a lot of us don't think about. Well, you know, that's his business. He drank all that booze, and now he's gone. I'm sorry. But you're telling me something now, saying we've got to take responsibility for who comes to your house today.
That's correct. Say you're throwing a party and you have a open bar, or you have a pay at your house at a bar. There's a lot of people around the state that does that. And I come to your house and I just have a good time. And I drink up all your alcohol, and I leave out of there, and I go down the road and I have a wreck and I kill somebody or somebody's family.
Yeah.
What that family is going to do is go to the insurance company. Then they're going to track back, whether it's at your home or whether it's at a bar or a club. They're going to track back and find out, how did he get that much alcohol? And then they're going to point that blame, if you will, or who did this. So they're looking for that, and they can hold you liable. You know, just like a bartender, you know, they are trained by ALE, and we also have another person on the DWI Task Force. She's an educator. All she does is go out and educate the public. That's her only job at the sheriff's office on the task force. And they are trained to see impairment and find out how many you had to drink or keep account. But you got to remember, how many people do bartenders see in a night?
That's right.
And when you walk up and say, I want a cold beer or whatever, that person's going to turn and talk to the friend beside them. So you really don't get a good visual of what's going on. So, you know, somebody needs to take the responsibility. The bartenders are trying to do that, but, you know, we as people need to take that responsibility amongst ourselves. If I go with you and a couple of friends, just one person in there needs to take responsibility for all of you, you know. And if everybody would take that into play when they go somewhere, I think that would start towards lowering it a little bit more.
I think so too. I think you were going to say something?
And especially when it comes to the younger folks, make sure everybody that's in your house that's partaking in alcoholic beverages is 21. And I say that, and you're like, well, we're going to be quiet, nothing will happen or whatever. But the neighbors may say, hey, y'all being too loud, and call the police. Well, next thing you know, the police are there. And then you got a 19-year-old that's drinking that maybe you didn't get the alcohol to, but they're in your house and you're responsible. So then you ultimately get charged for contributing to the underage person drinking. So be very careful with that for the younger folks.
So a host may be having a good time, but they got to be responsible at the same time.
That's
How
right.
do you spot an impaired driver? You mentioned something earlier about what the car is doing on the road. Any other way to spot one? Maybe at the bar or at a house?
Slurred speech, somebody that may be acting emotionally, red glassy eyes, and of course the strong odor of alcoholic beverage, and a big one's being unsteady on his feet. And if you're walking and that person like walking in like a zigzag or off balance or whatever, that's a pretty good indicator that that person's probably had a little too much to drink.
So what kind of, let's say I go to a party and I notice people at the party who are getting a little wobbly. What kind of responsibility do I have to say something to that person?
Well, that's a good point, because say you are at that party and you see this guy over here and you see him weaving back and forth and you say, oh my gosh, I've got to go home. My grandchildren might still be out there going home with their parents, and oh my goodness, he drove here and he's going to go home. So think about that. What is your responsibility? If it was me, I would say, that could be my family, that could be me.
Yes.
I need to go talk to this person or find somebody that knows this person and show them what you see and say, look, can you get him a ride home, or can you find a ride or get an Uber or take his keys from him? I really think, like I said a while ago, that us as individuals need to take charge of that. Yes. And if you were to leave and you can't get any of that done, you see them get in a car, call 911. Call us. Let us know. This description, this car is leaving this location. I don't know where they're going, because we can run a tag if you give us a tag, and we'll know where they live, and we can sort of judge on what roads they're going to go. The public is a big part in helping all law enforcement. It doesn't matter if it's DWIs or if it's armed robberies or B&Es. The public is a big help to all of us in getting this stuff under control.
And they can do it anonymously, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't have to say who I am and that I'm calling to talk about this person or whatever.
No. Because when I stop them, when I get behind them, it does matter what you say, because you get me there. But I, as a law enforcement officer, I have to determine and find reasonable suspicion. Everybody says, oh, you have to have probable cause. No, you have to have reasonable suspicion that a crime has been committed. Right. So that's what we do. We get behind them, we follow you, the weaving, the left to center, and we get the reasonable suspicion to get you on the shoulder of the road. So even though you called and you helped us out, we still have to get that so we can build a case in court.
I know a lot of people are afraid of that. Like, it's not my business. I'm going to let them do what they want. But as you two are pointing out to us, to make our neighborhoods safer, we have to step up.
That's right. And the police can't do it by themselves.
Can't do it all by themselves. And speaking of, as the holidays approach and you have 7 members, will you increase that number in the task force?
Well, we can't in the task force because we're grant funded, and there's just the 7 positions. But what we do is we team up with Greensboro, High Point, and the Highway Patrol during this time. We come together and we have checkpoints, and we have saturations patrol, and we have those scheduled during those times. So, for example, this 7 turns into 30 sometimes.
I see.
Sometimes it turns into 40. We've had up to 50 guys. The police chiefs and the sheriff and the highway patrol allows all these guys to come together, and that's all we concentrate on during the time that we're out there.
And we're talking about what, from November to
Well, actually,
January?
this is year-round.
Oh, I see.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. We are doing this, and the DWI Task Force, along with these other agencies, are putting this together monthly.
Okay.
We just had our meeting last week where we schedule a year in advance. We have the Guilford County has a DWI checkpoint task force.
Okay.
So we are a DWI task force, but we also in Guilford County have a checkpoint task force, and that consists of all law enforcement agencies in the county, where we set 12 to 15 different checkpoints throughout the whole year where we come together 12 or 15 times, and that's all we do is concentrate on DWI, seat belts, and sometimes we do speeding enforcement during the day. So yes, we do this yearly.
Well, I'll tell you, and when I stop at a checkpoint and the officer comes up, you know, and wants to see license and stuff like that, and I'll say, being a news person, I said, now what's going on? How long have you been here? How many people have you stopped? Have you arrested? And they said, move on, Miss Hughes. So I'm making it, blocking traffic, wanting to ask questions to see what I could do. Can you give us a few safety tips? Let's say if I'm planning to go to a party this weekend, what kind of things do I need to be thinking about? And I know there's going to be alcohol there.
Well, for starters, figuring out how you're going to get there and how you're going to get home. As I mentioned earlier, don't put yourself in the situation to have to make a choice whether, am I okay to drive? Well, if you're asking yourself that question, chances are you're probably not. So, but if you leave your car at home, have a friend take a cab there, you're not going to be tempted. And there's several good ways to get home, especially if you live locally. Uber has become the fastest growing thing around. Everybody I see is taking Uber, and it's very affordable because I've done it myself. Utilized Uber. You have your taxi cab services, and if you live close enough, you can walk or call a friend. Those are the best things to do when you're going out drinking. Don't even think about driving.
So you're saying don't wait till you get there and have had 3 or 4 drinks and then decide, what do I do now?
And
you
then
got to think about it ahead of time.
And then you feel like you can't get home, and then the only option you have is to drive. Well, if you think about it and make plans ahead, there's plenty of ways to get home.
You're absolutely right about that.
That's correct, because you know you got to remember your thoughts are impaired. You're not thinking correctly once you have one beer. A lot of people say 1 beer don't bother me, but it does affect you. Alcohol does affect you even with 1 beer. So yes, you need to plan ahead and think about what you're going to do for the night.
Great advice. Thank you both very
Yes,
much.
ma'am.
I want everybody out there to think ahead, you know, move ahead and think, how am I going to get home?
And it's 100% preventable.
I love it when you say that.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
love it when you say that. Well,
Yes,
you know,
ma'am.
you've offered us some very sound advice today, and I hope everyone who watches will listen to that advice and, you know, take heed. I also encourage each one of you to look out for each other. If you care for your friends and your family, don't let them get behind the wheel after they have been drinking. Let's all do our parts to keep our roadways safe, especially during this holiday season. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'm Sandra Hughes. Be safe.
This show was funded in part by the Greensboro Police Foundation, an independent nonprofit organization whose mission is to enhance Greensboro's economic strength by promoting the safest city possible for its residents, workers, and visitors through support of the Greensboro Police Department. For more information about the Greensboro Police Foundation, visit www.greensboropolicefoundation.org.